go. Okay, well, now we're going to add the sixth chord to our part writing and look at where does it sort of fit, okay? And so I want to do a quick review of what we've done. Again, Schenker's concept is that all melodies emphasize 3 at the beginning, and I'm just going to write it here just to show a little bit different than we've been part writing, right? Emphasize 3 at the beginning, and then make an ultimate shift through scale degree 2 down to scale degree 1 at the end. And that the basic harmonization of that portion of the melody, we started with 1-5-1, and we talked about spacing and doubling and range, setting up your first chord, right? And that this harmony, where scale degree 2 is emphasized, is harmonized by the dominant chord, and then the tonic chord reappears at the end as the melody ends on scale degree 1. Okay? Part writing, or resolving this harmony to this harmony to this harmony, we always think after we have the melody, if there's a contour issue to think about, and the bass note set, we always go back to the function of the previous chord. And that's the point I keep iterating and that students often forget. Tonic chords resolve by common tone, typically. And there is a common tone. The 5th note of the scale is the common tone between the 1 and the 5 chord. And at that point, we can see we have 2 G's and a D, therefore I need a B, which of course would be by step in the alto there. And then resolving the 5 chord, which has dominant function. Dominant chords resolved by sensitive pitch, 7 to 1. This B resolves to this C, which gives us the 3 reeds. Right? And then we learned that we dropped to the 3rd here. That led to the passing tone, right? And ultimately the birth of the 5-7 chord, which has the sensitive pitch, scale degree 4, resolving down to 3 as the ultimate passing tone. Okay, so that was sort of where we started with progressions. We then looked at the 4 chord, after we talked about incomplete and complete 5-7 chords and where they occur. We then talked about the 4 chord, which has tonic expansion function. We can use the plagal cadential extension 4-1 at the end, and we can have the predominant 4 chord here. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. The plagal cadential extension works if we end on the complete 1 chord, and this is where the Bach cheat 7 to 5 comes in. If instead of resolving the leading tone to 1 as I would expect, if I drop it to 5, I get the complete 1 chord, and from there I can add the plagal cadential extension 4-1, the Almani cadence. Again, after I have my bass set, the tonic chord resolves by common tone. And the other notes I need are an F and an A, which are gotten right there. This is a tonic expansion chord, resolves also by common tone like the tonic triad. And then these notes return, which gives us that sort of neighbor tone pattern, neighbor chord, some textbooks call it, for the tonic expansion 4 chord. The predominant 4 chord, where instead of going 1, 5, 1, we have the 1, 4, 5, right? Again, moving from this chord to this chord, resolved by common tone. The C would be the common tone, right? And then I would need another F and an A, which are simply by step. And that's where we learned that the predominant 4 chord, resolving to the complete 5-7 at the cadence, right, resolves by contrary motion. Predominant chords tend to resolve by contrary motion. Okay? We then, last time, talked about 4-6-4 and 1-6-4, right? This is where the 1-6-4 chord fits, because I have these 2 voices here and here that are dropping a 3rd, right? Which again leads to passing tones, right? And then with an E and a G in the key of C, categories 3 and 5, this is beginning to feel like a tonic chord. In fact, if the alto here holds the C, now I have the root of the tonic chord. But in this pattern, The 1 chord will appear in first inversion, and we mentioned last time that's 1-6-4. Sorry, second inversion. Because we don't want to mess up the 4-5 right pattern. And so this is where the 1-6-4 chord goes. Is at the cadence. And
so that's why you had to invert it, so you
didn't
mess up the next
so you didn't
chord.
mess up the bass line. And then we also talked about the 4-6-4 chord, right? Is if I invert to second inversion the 4-6-4 chord here, then this is where, you know, I can have that pedal note held across. So just to sort of finish up there, that gives me a nice little progression. Okay. What we want to do next is talk about where does the 6 chord fit into all of this, and then we will get to other inversions of the 5 chord. Okay. There we are. I can show you 2 places that we would anticipate the use of the 6 chord. Okay. The first is within a bass line here. Kids love to play, right, what I call the heart and soul progression, and an entire progression that spawned all the music of the 1950s, basically. We've got 1, 6, 4, 5, right? So the 6 chord sort of added from the 1 toward the predominant 4, finishes out the heart and soul bass line. And you can quickly see why this chord progression works so well and why it was able to spawn an entire generation of music. Again, if I'm going to the 6th chord, the A minor chord in C, it's a minor chord, and so we use the lowercase Roman numeral to label it. So A, C, E. Coming from a tonic chord, so I would hold the common tones, and note there are 2 common tones, right, moving from 1 to 6. So the C and the E here would be held. I now have A in the bass, C in the alto, E in the soprano. I need another A, and that's simply gotten by step from the tenor, right? And so you can see how easily the 6 chord just sort of fits. It moves quite easily from the 1 chord there, and then resolving to the predominant 4 chord, I have 2 common tones there. It's almost the perfect puzzle piece between 1 and the predominant 4, because you have the 2 common tones coming from the 1 to the 6, and then 2 common tones moving from the 6 to the 4. Now, in terms of defining the function of the 6th chord, it is a tonic expansion chord, because basically prolonging the C and the E of the tonic chord, it is in essence sort of a recoloring of the tonic chord, if that makes sense. If I move from 1 to 6, all that I've really done is sort of taken that first harmonic idea and shaded it differently. There's a special relationship, you know, when you talk about the relative minor, right? 1 and 6 have a kinship. They're cousins. They're relative major minor to each other. And so the 6 we think of is tonic expansion. It's a recoloring of the tonic with the 2 common tones here. And so it resolves by common tone, just like the tonic chord would. Okay? And so you can see how the heart and soul progression 1, 6, 4, and then resolving to 5, 7 works exceptionally well, because you've got those common tones, and it's just like a puzzle piece. It just fits between this chord and that. Okay? So now we have 6th chord added. Our little progression there. Let me double check my time. We're good. But the 6th chord can also do one other thing. It has one other function. And this is one of the nicest resolutions, I think, in Western music. If 6 follows 5, 7, Okay, what's called deceptive resolution. And let me play that. And you'll hear, I'll go ahead and play what the voicing will be, and we'll talk about how to get there. Right? That resolution of 5, 7 to 6 works. It's really quite beautiful. Because, again, the 6th chord is sort of a recoloring of the tonic chord. So it can sort of substitute, in essence, for the tonic chord after the resolution of 5, 7. We expect 5, 7 to go to 1. It can resolve what we call deceptively to 6, because the 6 has this special relationship with tonic. Okay? Now, in terms of resolving this, you move to the 5, 7 chord, or you resolve the 5, 7 chord just like you would expect with the sensitive pitches. Okay? But I do need to talk about the melody here for a second. Deceptive resolution occurs at the cadence, right? Typically the way that we're looking at it here, which means the melody we expected to go from 2 to 1 to the tonic chord, but it's going to go 2 to 1 to the 6th chord instead. Okay, so the melody is going to come down to 1 in the part writing model that we're working with. And then the sensitive pitches, 7 to 1, 4 to 3,